So all this stuff is like interconnected with, of course, male supremacy and everything else, but I mean interconnected with like rape and child abuse and all these other things that we're talking about. So this is in regards to the school shooter thing. So the parents should have always been held accountable on this thing way back in the day. So when this first started happening, everybody was just like, we're gonna ignore it. It's just the kids. We put the accountability on the kid. This whole thing, okay? So this has been the typical thing in rape or anything else, right? So when kids are getting raped by adults, it came up in the Drake Hell story. So I was like, okay, these two stories actually go together in the craziest way. Um, Not really the craziest way. It's just, what is manslaughter? It's typically something where like you're not really part of something it's not a purposeful act necessarily to go kill somebody or harm somebody. It's like your negligence cause harm and or death, excuse me, it would cause death on somebody else, right? So you had some participation in that by your actions. It's like this thing, right? So this is the same thing with kids getting raped in the industry, and not even necessarily in the industry. So I over here have been talking about multiple different scenarios. I mean, multiple. There's a new one too with this girl acting and pretending she's underage. And I was like, okay, we'll get to that story maybe later. It's just like, that's not a very common one, but it did happen. And the comment section in there was just, again, it was another thing where it was like justification to hate on women. There was a thing on there with it. And the oddity in it where they blame women for them not getting arrested for that in history, right? I go, it's men promoting it and saying that you like it. This other thing, right? And but they're using it as a justification to degrade women and everything else. And then another story popped up with the girl that was related to Andy Dick. I was like, oh God. There was a whole thing with that, but that story's actually not black and white at all. There was actually multiple people in that story that should have been busted, and it kind of tailed on a number of topics. When something turns into kidnapping, when the actions of the person at the end is really not self-defense. People were calling and egging on somebody in a mental health crisis to go hit somebody. So it wasn't, it was like, oh my God. And then the only person that got in trouble was the female. And I was like, well, no. I mean, if you actually looked at the whole thing, I had to go back and listen to something. I go, oh yeah, he was being verbally abusive because, and it's related to this story too, because he's using female derogatory words that have been okayed in society to call women. It is no different with if you had a white person fighting a person of color, and at random in the fight they start throwing out derogatory n-word, that thing. So men have continually done this. It is a little different when other women say it to each other. We shouldn't say it, I'm sure, to anybody, but women do it. And then women and men both use the derogatory terms, even talking to a man and using it to degrade women, to degrade a man. So there's a lot to that, and it's very abusive, very abusive. So we're going to see it here in the shooting case. And I was like, yeah. I go, if I was dating somebody and they started flinging out these words, I don't recall any of my exes flinging out words like this, but if I heard them, we're breaking up. That's just it. That's a very disrespectful thing to a gender, a single gender going on like that. So you're going to see it here. These two people are hell. And there's definitely abuse and neglect going on in all these cases, even with the Hollywood case with the kids getting raped and everything. The parents still, at the end of the day, have the responsibility to make sure kids are safe and not being neglected and handing them over to random people. So there is a neglectful act there, and they should be held accountable. It doesn't mean that they knew it was going to happen. It's that it's a neglectful thing where the child is under their control and they put him in a situation that can cause harm. It's that type of thing right there. And it hasn't been really tackled. So there's people, the parents are playing we're the victim of this. Even though I handed my kid to have some guy take him into a hotel room and sleep with them alone. It's like, okay, no, that's an act right there that you negligently did something and put your kid in a harm way. You were not there. Where were you? Right? But I was saying that there were some other cases. It's like a kid goes to school. Well, there's an expectation that the kid should be safe at the school, right? So when those things happen, then they go after the entities that allowed it to happen and they do cover up, this whole other thing, all that legal jargon stuff. But I'm saying the one thing that they haven't really tackled is this thing where the parents are trying to play completely innocent in partaking in some negligence on their kids getting raped by other adults in cases where they did have responsibility to make sure that the kids were not harmed, and they were neglectfully just leaving them with random people without anything. And they're just like, what? And it's like, but the kid, what matters in the story is that the kid is under the adult supervision and they have no say, in the entire thing. So they played a part in the kid getting harmed. Then I was pulling up my case because my case is a purposeful child endangerment where my parents can sit there and try to play that game, like I had no idea that these people would rape them. It's like, yes, but in the case of my parents, they wanted me to get harmed. So, then the actions that they did to purposefully harm me and then in the addition to not rescue me out of the situation when I told them. So there was like there was multiple things on top of each other. So it wasn't I had no idea you were being harmed. Okay. Not at all. And they left me to get raped by a bunch of pedophile celebrity people and a bunch of stuff. Okay. So that's massive child abuse and neglect. It's a massive crime what they did there. It was human trafficking, definitely. But government wants to argue with me all these different things and they're bullshit because they're a bunch of pedophiles that hate women. So, okay, the justification. So this father right here is a piece of shit. Completely. His name is James Crumbley and he threatened the jailhouse. Threatening jailhouse calls revealed ahead of Michigan school shooter's parents' sentencing. James and Jennifer were both convicted of 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter. So what it means is that their conduct caused they could have stopped the conduct. So they were very neglectful in what they did here. And there was a lot of glorifications of gun. There was a lot of stuff. And the dad's a pile of shit. He's an abuser. You could literally tell he's an abuser by the way he's talking right here. So as we go through this, I didn't follow the case. I was just very happy that finally some parents got held accountable for this because those kids are created. They are created. And that's what I'm stressing over here. They're all socios, but they're created. And we're looking at the dynamic of the parent. And that's why I said the guy that threw out that BTK thing, I was like, yeah, I cannot answer for you what you want to hear at this moment. Because number one, I don't know the story about their background or anything like that. And how they were raised. Those things are very important in the story. And for a case like Diddy, there's so many cases like Diddy where the kid does become like the father. Russell Brand, okay, and then the father was semi-absent, and then yet he got his son raped, and yeah, there's a lot to that. So I was like, yeah, we got to look at this because what you want to do is cut that off because that's where your rapist problem is, and that's where your mass shooters are, and that's where your serial killers are, and that's where your criminals are, right? So you want to go into this area here. And so, yeah, asking the question, like, why didn't somebody come out that way, in this mix of things is a little hard to explain at the moment. It's like, because at some crapshoot, one kid normalized something versus another's completely traumatized and not doing it to other people. So, but it does indicate, regardless of which side of the fence you're on, it has a long-term effect on everybody, right? And there's so much in that topic. That's why I was just like, they threw it out there, like, what about them? I'm like, how am I supposed to answer that in the comment section? I mean, we've been talking about it for hours and hours long throughout this thing and examining these cases like that. Okay, so here's another one. Okay, so he's threatening jailhouse phone calls made by James, the father. Okay, so towards the prosecutor, leading his criminal case, have now been released ahead of his sentencing next week. Crumbley was convicted of 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter last month. His wife was also convicted of the same charges at a trial weeks earlier. The Crumbleys made history as the first parents to ever be held criminally held accountable for a mass shooting committed by their child. Which is crazy that it just happened now, right? Because in the 1999 one, I don't know, I don't understand because the public's so like, let's go after everybody, but they didn't do that. I guess because the parents were always playing this game of like, it's the kids' fault. We blame kids for their actions and we're innocent and we've never done anything. And they didn't talk about the mass child abuse and the outcomes, how kids are coming out. That's why they're doing drugs. That's why all these things, right? Having addiction problems, like those particular ones, because there was a lot going on in the early portions there. So the shooter, who was 15 at the time, is now serving a life sentence over the school shooting. Yeah, so now the entire family's in prison. While both parents now face up to 60 years in prison, 15 per count, James is asking the judge to take into account his time served. Okay. Prosecutors, meanwhile, are seeking lengthy sentences for both, saying that they both show a lack of remorse for their crimes. Yeah, they see themselves as that innocent parent, just like the Drake Bell parent, that whole whatever the bullshit is, everybody's cuddle festing up there. No. So this is kind of like the 1999 in the sexual assault department, where it's like, no, you do have liability in setting your kid up to get harmed. You may not do it on purpose. You may do it on purpose, but it doesn't mean that you know what's going to happen. It's just you did something negligent and another human being got harmed. I don't think they don't want to take that accountability. And it was brought up in the Michael case too, right? Like where the parents are handing their kid to somebody to stay in a hotel with a man without the parent. That's a setup. So where's the parent? The parent actually should be present, and I know there's going to be a lot of different arguments with this because we're talking about that sleepover thing. Holy crap. But the parent's supposed to watch the kids, and then they had a parent that's supposed to watch their kids. But, there's some areas in there that are like, I don't know, questionable things. But there's some like really clear cut lines here. It's like, you should have never let your kid go with somebody in a hotel room without you there. I mean, that's just, that's pretty crazy, right? And then, oh, you could take my kid for a month. Just a lot of things where these actions, if it led to a harm on somebody, yes. Otherwise, it just allows my type of parents to sit there and get away with doing criminal acts such as they did, which they've gotten away with it, obviously, right? Yeah, that should have never happened. It's illegal to do business with a child, so regardless of anything with government, that's illegal. So I don't know where government was in this thing. You want to protect that shit? It's illegal to have a business meeting with a kid without a fucking adult, like, present. Like, you can't do any legal, agreements, verbal or otherwise, with the kid. So, if you know the laws and you follow the laws and some kid shows up without an adult present, then when as somebody that's not a pedophile, you go, oh, we can't, where's your parents in this? We can't go on with this meeting, right? It should be more like that, right? That did not occur. So let's see what this asshole goes on about. Okay, so Karen McDonald's office is arguing that James' various phone calls attacking Miss McDonald called for him to be sentenced to 10 to 15 years in prison. Defendant's jail calls show that he blamed everyone but himself for what happened and that he repeatedly referred to himself as being persecuted and considered himself a martyr. Isn't that like every guy in these stories where they're rapists or anything? It's so connected, you guys. It's together. He's a straight up socio. It's like everybody else, dude. Nobody's raising your son. It's you. It's you. But listen how he talks about women. This is it right here. The phone calls were detailed in a Wednesday memo showing how Crumbley referred to Miss McDonald as a fucking stupid B word. I hope you listen to this, you fucking B word. I'm like, we're gonna say the fucking part. Yes, so that right there, that language coming from a man, no. This should have never been acceptable by anyone. And then when women, now, when we say it to each other, it does have a different thing, but we shouldn't say it, okay? They'll use it and say it towards men. And basically, we're degrading ourselves. Like you're telling a man off and you're using our gender to do it. Oh, you're such a woman. It's like, excuse me? Yeah, so this language right here is a big no-no. If I hear a man talking about a woman like this, no way. They're out of my circle. That's it. Um, and yes, I have used that with other women in talking. But it is very different when a man is talking that way to our gender. Again, we're not okaying the language, but I'm just saying it has a very different meaning. And no. And so James Crumbley also reportedly told the prosecutor on October 9th, 2023, yeah, Karen McDonald, you're going down. Go ahead, record this call, send it to Karen McDonald. Tell her how James Crumbley is going to effing take her down. And he's so vengeful, right? They're retaliation kings. This is where it comes about, you guys. So if you're a victim to these people, then you go, oh, they raped me, whatever. Do you see how vengeful he is? We're going to take her down. See that? It's evil. I didn't even go on like that. I was like, no, we're looking for justice. Like, I was trying to go through the system, like, we're doing this thing. And no, these people were like, we're going to take her down. Yeah, and that's the shit that they did to me and harm very, very bad. In January, just months before his trial in March, he allegedly said, I am effing on a rampage, Karen. Yes, Karen McDonald, your ass is going down and you better be effing scared. This guy. Do you wonder where his son got this shit from? You just stand back from the story and you see why they got created. You do. Yeah, so I started noticing this as I was going through these cases. I was like, the parents. And there's different variations of these type of abuses. That's why I was like, you can't just sit there and go, oh, because of this. I go, well, look at this parent. This parent here is such a pile of shit, vengeful, degrading women, I'm going to retaliate to hell. And what does the son do? Does this thing, right? I go, there it is. You're just like father, like son. There it is, right there. Okay, so in the memo, prosecutors wrote he showed a complete lack of remorse and disrespect for the court proceedings. Yeah, he's not capable of empathy. I mean, he's literally showing you that. Me personally, I don't even think I could fight it. I think, if my kid did this, right? I don't know. It's just one of those things I'd just be so horrified and I'd be blaming myself. I just know it, and I probably would be somehow partially to blame for what happened. It wouldn't be this thing that's going on with this guy right here. The mom just looks so evil too, right? Hey, you would almost have to be the same evil to be with this guy. This is how he talks. This is how she gonna take it. She take it, and this bullshit. James and Jennifer were charged with 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter after prosecutors accused them of ignoring their son's mental health condition. Doesn't it sound like dad ignored his own? See, that's the problem in this story, because they ignored the son's mental health issue. However, the parents are so fucked up that they're the ones that need it more than that son first, right? And they're raising a kid. They're mentally off kilter. They raised a son that was just as messed up, and then he went out and did that, right? There it is. That's why I go, okay, it's totally in here. All these parents should be held accountable, because it is a direct result of their upbringing. And this is just one dynamic in a million, but this is one. Okay, so, and making the gun he used, condition, and making the gun he used in the 30 November 2021 shooting accessible at home, right? So 4 days before the shooting, he bought his son a gun, which Ethan described on Instagram as his new beauty. Yeah, so Jennifer then took her son to a shooting range for practice. Yeah, this is the mom. We're chip over here. Yeah. Oh God. Johnny Depp's background, if you guys went into that, I was like, if you did, that's why I said, I go, this stuff is so connected. Same with Marilyn Manson. He was shooting kids at school with, what did he say, with the paint gun? It might have been with the paint gun. He was doing something like that. And he was already exhibiting. There wasn't these school shootings, I don't think, back at that time. There was some, I think, but it wasn't like this. That. So, yeah, there was some things right there. But you saw it wasn't from the school. Like the thing, even if they go, oh, I was bullied, if you read the story about them, it wasn't from the school. That's probably like an addition because he was acting like a wacko. It was from his home life. Because his parents are a hot mess. Mostly his dad, right? His dad's a hot mess. And it came from that. And I was like, wow, okay. A few days later, a teacher noticed the high school sophomore searching online for ammunition, sparking concerns and prompting school administrators to contact his parents. Okay. Instead of responding to the school, his mother allegedly texted her son, laugh out loud, I'm not mad at you. You have to learn not to get caught. Oh my God. Okay, so the school is not even part. This is interesting because in this case, the school found out and they're like, we need to check. You would automatically think like the parents would be, oh my God, what is my son doing here? Oh, no. So the school did the right thing as far as, I mean, could they have done more? Probably. Maybe they should have went to law enforcement. I don't know what happened in that portion, but they went to the parents and said, your son is like looking for bullets, like what the hell? And instead of being serious about this or anything, she's like, I'm not mad at you. Like totally enabling, right? Here's the enabling from mommy dearest. I'm not mad at you. You have to learn not to get caught. So she's teaching him to manipulate. Right there. See, this is the stuff that's not broken down when they're talking about these stories like Drake Bell or anything else, how their damn parents are at home. I already know it. I'm very good at smelling this shit out. So I'm not here for the manipulation from anybody. I know a lot of people have a hard time reading these people. I do not anymore, for the most part. The thing about it is what's going on in the home life. The father, somebody in their family, has a really shit problem with women. One of their parents or both. And in here we have both because they're both like, what the fuck? I mean, this thing. Okay, so the following day, the Crumbleys were called into the school for a meeting after school officials then found disturbing drawings done by Ethan in the classroom. The parents declined to take him home, and just hours later, Ethan opened fire in his murderous rampage, killing 4 classmates, right? Was it 2 girls and 2 guys? Yeah, so he just took some people out. I don't know what the drawings were. I'm kind of curious. My drawings sometimes were disturbing, but should I have been probably, like I was thinking about this in the early portions, when things were a little disturbing, when things were a little disturbing at a point, I think it had a direct result because of that Golden State Killer thing, where the person, I was saying there was a person in the home. So that was one portion. And then the second portion was because my parents were fighting a lot. So there was a lot of things like that. And I think in combination, because those were those 2 main things going on right here, that I think I was just expressing myself in the weirdest way. And it was really dark. Maybe. And then my dad was actually feeling the darkness, because he comes off like the Zodiac. Yeah, so I think, yeah, and in fact, it would be more of a reflection of my father. for people to understand this because he thought murder and shit was funny as hell. And so there was a level of a disconnect of reality there because, like, he's talking about real murder cases. And for me, I'm viewing it as a kid going, this is all fake. It's a hard thing to explain to you guys, but it was really weird. It was like there was a separation of, like, this stuff that I'm watching is fake, because it was, like, the TV stuff. But he thinks it's funny, and he's actually dealing with real life murder cases. And there's something really fucked up about that. Like, I don't know. I was looking back at it going, yeah, I probably would have never even liked half these people had it not have been for his creepiness over here. So, yeah. Anyways, thankfully I didn't turn into this monster because it wasn't that I wanted to go kill people because I didn't even have that in me. It wasn't even, I never even thought of running away. I never thought of harming my parents. I never thought, it wasn't like that. It was such a different, I don't know, this just wasn't there. It wasn't in me. Like, we didn't have this thing going on right here. So James Crumbley was presented with the easiest, most glaring opportunities to prevent the deaths of 4 students, and he did nothing. Again, those 2 should have been thrown into a program themselves. And he did nothing over and over and over again. And prosecutors argued repeatedly that both parents had the power to stop the shooting from happening. So this is the thing to think about in the sexual assault cases with children. What are they arguing here? They repeatedly had all the power to stop certain incidents from happening. And I know for a fact that many parents even knowingly knew an adult was on their child and they would just hand him over to the perpetrator. There's so many stories like this where it's just like, yes, it could have been prevented. And like the kid is not a human. And so they don't matter in the story or something. And it's just, and then they would sit there and put all the responsibility onto the kid, which they've been trying to do on all these shooter stories. They're like, it's the kid's fault. We're so dumb, we don't even know. However, they had access to a gun and something's wrong with your son that you ignored, which means there's abuse going on in the home. See, do you guys see where the abuse is going on in the home? Because if you read something like this and do not realize there is abuse going on in the home, there definitely is. In multiple ways. They're enabling, the father's a pile of shit. You could tell how he's going to talk to his son, yelling, screaming, degrading this, degrading mom's trash, blah, this thing. You're going to see this dynamic. And the son is like trying to get, probably he's trying to get attention and love, but they can't give it. Prosecutors argued repeatedly that both parents had the power to stop the shooting from happening, pointing out that James knew the shooter must be his son when he heard of the shooting at his school. They also said the parents ignored signs of their son's poor mental state in the months leading up to the tragedy. In a tape police interviewed Jennifer, she wished she had taken her son home that day. In the aftermath, the shooting, the pair came under scrutiny for their strange behavior. Reports show the couple drained their son's bank account. They're just socios. I mean, this is okay. So they withdrew cash, sold their horses, and bought 4 burner phones in the hours after finding out what their son had done. Wow. When they were arrested 4 days after the shooting, the couple reportedly had $6,000 in cash, credit cards, gift cards, and 4 phones. A landmark case. Before Jennifer's case, never before had a parent been tried for their alleged involvement in a mass school shooting. Why, though? Because they've all been this way. We had that military dad guy and all this bullshit. Same bullshit, And the military dads are the ones that love to promote the gun violence. A lot of them. So much in that. There was so much in that. Our legal system does not, nor should it, criminally punish people for subpar, odd, or eccentric parenting. Excuse me? Is that their defense? A judge? However, before us is the unusual case. You should be punished if an injury occurs from their parenting. And if your son or daughter becomes a monster onto others, you at the end of the day are liable. That's it. Because kids are just the sponge of the parents. They're just becoming who they are, right? So there's an action that you're doing causing that right there. And I seen it. I mean, I literally got to witness this. So I was like, oh my God, I I have to stop this train, but I can't do it because the government won't let me. And so I have to sit here and watch this shit show happen and then somebody have problems now. At least they're not school shooters, right? But I'm just saying I watched it develop where I had not before, and so I understand it now. I was like, I understand it now, and this is really bad. Okay, the pair, and it's funny because it happened to me, right? Like, all you're in a family, you're a kid, you're growing up, and you have this happen. There's something different when it's happening to you where you don't really understand it as much as you can understand it more watching it on somebody else. Something about that. But yeah. Okay, so the pair's conviction on manslaughter charges could set new precedents for future school shooting cases. Yeah. And because what will happen is like well, a couple of things can happen here. There's gonna be parents that may have been just kind of neglectful in promoting this shit, where they kind of have a fear, where they're like, "Oh God, if they do it, we're gonna sit there and get thrown in prison," and then they're gonna care more, right? But these two right here, I'm gonna tell you this: even if it was they knew it in the public, they could all be arrested. They're such fuck ups that they wouldn't care, right? They don't care. We're going to ignore all that. We're going to ignore all that. We're going to ignore all that. But they should be in prison, right? That's what's going to happen in this dynamic. So there's going to be more people that will care a lot more. But these type of people right here, but at least they'll be held accountable. That's the least that you can get from that kind of crap. But I'm telling you, the public, to pay more attention to this crap and jump into these stories to save these kids before it turns into this. And how do we do that? So that's the question, right? How do we do that? Well, the school had some signs here. It may be that in that portion there, maybe they should have went to the police or CPS, right? And had them come to the house. Because I don't know if that happened. It doesn't sound like that happened. But we need to do a little bit more so they cut into the story much earlier before their son's already a sociopath. Their son's already a sociopath. But let me tell you. So he was 15 at the time he did that. So what that means is that throughout this whole time that he was being raised, he had these idiots, okay? And he was already in the process of being created into a monster. So by the time at 15, which is too late, because as you see, it was too late, he then went and did these things. So it took a long time to develop. It's like this thing. But we've seen cases where by 6 years old, they can do that. It is something that shouldn't be occurring, but it's something that's hard to jump into because when children are away from school, they're not adults, so it's hard to jump into stories like that. And the people that can are kind of like family, friends. Sometimes the school could pick it up just like they did here. How do you jump in that story before they're turning a teenager? Okay, you need to jump in that story before that. You need to jump in that story before that because it's a non-fixable thing after the fact. Do you see the father? How old is this father? This father is a lot older. I'm like, let me see him for a second. I don't know how old they are. Are they in their 40s, 50s, hitting up in the 50s maybe? They're non-fixable, okay? They're non-fixable. It's probably Gen X. I was like, right here. I don't know their ages, but something around there, right? Yeah, they're non-fixable. Unfortunately, they are. I mean, you're seeing it right there. I go, that's the thing. That's the thing right there. And yeah, it should have been mostly in that 1999 thing. I am really surprised, but yeah, I guess it's just from the society blaming children the whole time that they did not start holding them accountable. So They do need to, such as Elliot Rogers' parents. Oh yeah. Everybody in the story, they were trying to believe the manipulation from the son because the son's a socio. So he continually played the victim, right? So he's like, they did this, they did that, da, 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 this thing. And they just let it happen, And you hear the parents go, well, maybe I should have done more. I was like, fuck yeah, you should have done more. But people were cuddling him going, you could have not have known. That's not true. They are liable in the same way as a case of manslaughter, right? That's the best way I can explain it, because it's not like, in some cases it is a purposeful act. In some cases it's not. In some cases it's just neglect and you're a pile of shit and you should have went and got therapy yourself and that's why your kid's a fuck up, right? Those things. But it's not like you, but now I don't know. These guys could have been sitting there going, yeah, you should shoot up the kids at school. There's going to be some parents like that. I hate to know who they are, but trust, somewhere out here there's going to be those parents. And there's no way in hell they would admit that crap out here. But she's sitting there laughing at him getting ammo. It's like, you gotta manipulate, son. You gotta learn to manipulate. I can't believe my parents never said anything like that. I actually got the opposite. It's like, never tell a lie and we're gonna grill you to hell. So I'm like overly honest, right? I got abused into that. A complete flop of this, but no, she's like, you have to learn not to get caught. He's going to become a criminal. Learn not to get caught. These messaging right here. Huh. Oh, I never had any adults say this to me. Like, they're always trying to be honest, Abe. Do not do anything bad. Don't steal. Don't lie. Don't do these things. And his fucking parents are like, you have to learn not to get caught. He's going to be a fucking thief at a minimum. But he turned into a school shooter because there's a lot really bad in this family right here. They deserve the worst of the worst outcome in here. Definitely. And one last point. Keep in mind, I'm a child victim of another child that harmed me and broke my wrist. And he later killed somebody. Okay, so that was the stuff that was never in the public because they protected the child cases. And like I said, I'm very up on this topic. I literally know all this stuff about these socios and how their parents enabled them. I'll not have any man come up in here and be talking and call me a simp. I don't know what the hell that was yesterday. It was crazy. I was like, sympathy for what? Okay, so not you. Okay, so on that case, the mom did not tell the son that he did anything wrong. And his Facebook is scary as fuck. Like today, right now. There's blood and gore and he's chopping up animals. It's pretty fucking crazy. If I found the right one, I'm pretty sure I did. The mom told him that he's just a typical boy and let it be. And you could tell that there was massive child abuse in the family because for him to be like around 8 years old, he was somewhere around that age. I don't have the case because I'm a child in the case. I'm the victim in the case and I don't even have access to the case or what. So anyway, as I would like to get it, I don't know how to get it. I don't know how to any of this stuff because I got money from it and I need to know what was stolen from me. That's another addition in this. So his mother told him boys will be boys. They told me that as a victim, showed no empathy. The mom showed no empathy for me. She enabled her son and said there was nothing wrong with his actions, that it was a typical boy to run around like a stalker and stalk some random kid out that he never met. Not one word. There was no exchange between us to go and break their arm and try to kill them. That was pretty much his MO there because the look on him was, I'm going to hurt you. And then he just started making chase. And so when he did this, then he broke my wrist. He showed no empathy. The mom showed no empathy. So the son is not developing properly as a child. So when he grew up, he became a monster and he's still very monstrous. Now, I don't know what else he's done. He got away with the murder case, I guess. They try to play a self-defense card. I go, no. And so I wasn't able to speak out on that case. And my dad hated me so much that he helped him out. Is that crazy? It is crazy. And it shows you the MO of my father for harming me as a kid. That he had such a vengeance and it was vile evil to try to murder me basically and dumping me out here without an adult. There's so much of that story that can be, if it was investigated properly, you're going to see the hell of that. What father, I want to ask anybody out here, if somebody harmed your kid and your kid ended up in the hospital and you had to sue the family and everything, would you then later go and help defend that guy to get off from murder?